I don't know about you, but Wayne LaPierre's forehead is an inviting target. I'm serious. He's got a big forehead. All you got to do is put a bullseye on that puppy. But, seriously, I can't stand the guy, but I'm not into people paying the ultimate price just because they have a different opinion than mine. Anyway, I'm going to show you the interview with Wayne. And in my opinion, he comes off like a raving maniac. But, that's just my opinion. You're entitled to yours.
We're back with the Executive Vice President and CEO of the National Rifle Association, Wayne LaPierre. Welcome. Let me start where we were with Donald Trump on this question of anybody wants to purchase a gun who happens to be on one of these federal lists. Is there any space between you and Donald Trump, and what worries you about legislation on that?
Let me set it in context in terms of what I think we're facing this past week. I mean, we all mourn for what happened, John, but we faced a terrorist challenge where they're on the verge of overwhelming us. What happened this past week is the president, the whole gun ban movement said, hey, don't look at terrorists, look over here, divert your attention, take your eyes off the problem, because they don't want to face the embarrassment of their failure in this terrorist area, and they want to cover their butts and not talk about it. You can't.
Okay, here we go. Number one, Wayne, it's 3 instances, and that's what we've had in the last, I'll call it 24 months. We've had 3 instances of terrorist acts, and to be honest with you, only 2 of them, in my opinion, were quote-unquote Islamist-generated terrorist acts. This last one, I believe, this guy basically just threw a bunch of crap out there because he was having sexual identity problems. But let's say it's all 3. 3 instances in 24 months is not overwhelming us. So, you like to use a lot of hyperbole anytime you're trying to defend your position, but 3 is not overwhelming. 3 is a few.
Can't save the country with politics. The politically correct policies of the White House are intruding right now in military, terrorism, law enforcement. It's all being politicized with the politically correct White House nose and fingers in areas they don't belong. And let's start with a terrorist watch list.
We'll address some of those claims in a minute, but just quickly on this question of you and Donald Trump. You're in the same place on this issue?
Donald Trump's, as far as I know, he wants to attack criminals, he wants to protect the law-abiding, and he wants to attack ISIS and get the bad guys, and that's where we are.
If a person's on a watch list, whether no-fly or terror watch list, what should the policy be?
Let me talk about the watch list. I have never seen so much misinformation and poorly researched stories the last week as that, as we've seen. What happens on the watch list? People forget law enforcement set it up. They set it up exactly the way they wanted it, federal law enforcement. NRA didn't take the guy's name off the list. The federal government did. FBI did, largely because of some of these political correct policies that I think I've been talking about earlier. Here's what would have happened if they left him on the list. People don't understand this. There would have been a ping going to the federal government. They would have talked to the guy that actually put his name on the list. There would have been a 3-day delay. During that delay, if the government wanted to stop it, they could go to court. They could stop it. What law enforcement wants to do 90% of the time, 99% of the time, is let it go through. They want to watch it. They want to build a case. They want to build patterns. FBI Director Comey said that he didn't want an outright ban because that would blow a lot of their criminal investigations.
But you also don't want terrorists with guns in their hands, right?
Nobody wants terrorists with guns.
So what's the accommodation we can find here?
The accommodation is the Cornyn bill, which does exactly what law enforcement set up. It codifies the whole thing. If somebody's on the list, tries to buy a gun, there's a delay. Law enforcement immediately gets on it. If they want to stop it, they go to a judge. They've got oversight. They have to do it right away because the minute you delay, you're tipping off the bad guy. and it provides due process for the good people, and it gives law enforcement the ability where they can conduct these investigations, and it won't blow what they're doing.
All right, that's a bunch of crap. All right. I went in my, actually in two attempts at purchasing weapons. My very first purchase, I went in to acquire a handgun. It did not go through immediately. I had to come back, and when I came back, it had gone through, so I was able to acquire my first handgun, obviously state of Texas. When I went to acquire my first AR-15, now this is after acquiring two additional handguns for my wife and family protection. Okay, I went to go back and acquire my first AR-15. That didn't go through, okay? And I couldn't follow up on that one because I was going out of town. But I knew I was okay, so what I turned around and did was I paid for it, and they told me I would, if I didn't come back immediately, I would have to go through the background check again. I paid for it. I was out of town a week. I came back, to pick up the weapon. They ran the background check the second time, went through in like 10 minutes. Okay, but see, in that particular case, I knew that, I was straight, that there wasn't any problem. It was just whatever bureaucracy or whatever that had slowed down the approval. If you got a bad guy, okay, quote unquote, terrorist, whatever you want to call him, and he goes in there and he's on a list, well, hell, if he's getting ready to plot something or do something, he's going to already know why he didn't get approved right away. So as far as tipping off whether they're on somebody or not, the guy's own knowledge of what he's doing is going to throw up alerts for him, and then he's going to go do whatever he's going to do. So that 3 days is a bunch of crap.
Let me get back to your original point, which is in the reaction to this. Isn't it human nature to, when something happens, to reach for an explanation of what happened? So there's the terrorist piece, there's the LGBT piece,
Sure.
But are people so crazy to think that a weapon that is involved in the case, and has been in other cases, is not something to just seek into and inquire and find out what's going on?
See, that is a great question, and that is the truth. People are looking for answers, and they'll look for answers, wherever they hopefully can find them. Mr. LaPierre is totally going to discount one of those pieces. He's going to completely ignore the gun piece and try to concentrate on the other pieces, which is a major failing.
Not making it sound like it's a conspiracy. Aren't people just trying to figure out why people should be able to have access to weapons that produce bullets so quickly, and maybe we should do something to curb that? That seems like a human reaction.
John, I think we need to look right in the face of what these people are that we're facing. They don't care about the law. Laws didn't stop them in Boston. Laws didn't stop them in San Bernardino, where you had every type of gun control law you could have. And they didn't stop them in Paris, where people can't even own guns.
Okay, Boston, those were pipe bombs, not firearms, and 99.99999% of the percentage of the people in this country don't go around making pipe bombs, have no desire to make pipe bombs. So adding the Boston Marathon portion of it is just muddying the waters. Now, as far as the San Bernardino portion of it, absolutely, unequivocally, these guys went out, acquired weapons in order to do what they did. So if you had just put that piece of it in there, we might have been able to find possibly a little common ground. But because you conflate so much, you basically are creating your own adversaries as far as the arguments are concerned.
They had fully automatic guns, they had ICDs, they had explosives. I mean, these bad guys we're facing, they don't say, oh gosh, they passed a law. Oh gosh, I don't think I can do it. It's like what we're doing with this debate on the Hill right now, it's like they're trying to stop a freight train with a piece of Kleenex.
Wouldn't a pause or a waiting period or extra scrutiny or something maybe create one more filter that might have caught a guy like Mateen? It goes the argument.
The filter is take them off the street, confront them directly, attack them. That's what we've got to do.
You said a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun. There was a good guy with a gun in the club, couldn't stop him.
Well, what every place needs is a security plan that protects it. The fact.
Okay, so there goes this argument about good guy with a gun, because the good guy with a gun didn't even fire a shot. So now you're talking about extra security, which, by the way, I agree with. If you got a club with a whole bunch of people, you should have sufficient security, and I mean sufficient armed security if necessary, in order to prevent something like this. So on that, I'll agree with you, but your initial premise that a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun got shot out the window with the Orlando shooting.
Is we need to face what's coming. They're trying to kill us. They're not going to attack hard targets. All the hard targets are protected by the government with guns. They're going to go for vulnerabilities. They're going to go for shopping malls. They're going to go for churches. The fact is, we need vigilance, we need preparedness, we need a full court press on personal protection. We need to be able to protect ourselves.
Donald Trump.
So basically what you're saying is every man, woman, and child in America needs to be able to protect themselves, so they all, or we all, need to go out and get guns. And I'm sure that you got an extra stipend from the gun manufacturers of America for making that particular statement.
Has suggested concealed carry in a nightclub where people are drinking.
I don't think you should have firearms where people are drinking, but I'll tell you this, everybody, every American needs to start having a security plan. We need to be able to protect ourselves because they're coming. And they're going to go for vulnerable spots, and this country needs to realize it.
What does that mean, a security plan? Should everybody get an automatic or a semi-automatic, or should we lift the limits against automatic weapons?
I think that we're talking about the fact law-abiding people need to be able to own firearms to protect themselves. I think we need national carry reciprocity. I think every school needs a protection plan with either a police officer or certified armed security. When we need to look at all our vulnerabilities, and we need to harden them because they're coming and they're going to try to kill us, and we need to be prepared. And this president,
this guy, I mean, this guy is a nut. I mean, but again, translation, every man, woman, and child, well, I don't know, if he is going to say child, but every man and woman of sufficient age needs to have a gun because they're coming for us. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm trying to formulate the words to describe, his attitude. And the only words that come to mind is this guy is a stark raving lunatic. I mean, true enough, you should be able to defend yourself. Okay, but does everybody need an automatic weapon, which is the question that he was asked? The answer is no. Honestly, in my opinion, a handgun in a closed situation, and especially home protection, a handgun is going to do a hell of a lot more for you than an AR-15 style weapon. And to be honest with you as well, my weapon of choice for home protection is a shotgun. Stress being what it is, your aim could be off because you're under a stressful situation. All you have to do with a shotgun is to send fire down range. It spreads. So your likelihood of hitting your target with shotgun blast is going to be a lot greater than trying to hit your target with a single projectile when you are nervous.
By diverting the attention to gun control movement, that's not going to solve the problem. They could care less.
Do you think Donald Trump mentioned somebody going in buying all sorts of ammunition? Should the amount of ammunition somebody buys get them extra scrutiny?
Again, you're going to an area that doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference.
Well, but he's running for the nomination, and you've endorsed him, so...
That's not the issue. I mean, if we want to save lives, let's look at Chicago, okay? You got every federal gun law in the books right now. Drug dealer with a gun, 10 to 20 years. Criminal gang member with a gun, 10 to 20 years. Felon with a gun, 5 to 10 years. This federal government, that Attorney General Janet Lynch, they're not enforcing any of the...
Okay, it would have been nice if he had called her by her proper name, which is Loretta Lynch. But back to the Chicago deal. He's full of shit. The guns that are coming into Chicago are coming across the Indiana border, which has some of the laxest laws as far as gun purchases are concerned in the country. But he's not going to tell you that.
federal gun laws. They're letting it happen night after night after night, and they're being given cover by the elite media like the New York Times that writes a 5-page story and has one little paragraph.
We're gonna have to end it there, Mr. LaPierre. I'm sorry.
Let's get the bad guys off the street, attack the terrorists, and leave the good guys alone.
All right, we'll be right back.
Yeah, one thing about him is they're coming for us. He should have, just said it in plain English, because that's what he's been intimating, and that's what most of the NRA quote-unquote leadership intimates. They are coming for us, i.e. Islamist, radical Islamic terrorists are coming for us. Okay, 3 instances now, 3 instances. And there have been a lot more instances of the Muslim community being attacked than 3 instances. And not just the Muslim community, anybody that looks like a Muslim, because if you recall, a bunch of white guys attacked that Sikh temple up in Michigan. They weren't even Muslims, but the white guys are so damn stupid, they couldn't differentiate between Sikhs and Muslims. And then we're not even going to bring up Dylan Roof killing the people in South Carolina. That should have been designated a terrorist attack. But somehow, because it was a white guy killing black people, for whatever reason, that wasn't a terrorist attack. And let me not go back through history with Rosewood and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Anyway, I digress. Wayne LaPierre is a raving maniac. If it has to do with guns, he loves it. If it is any type of gun control, he hates it. And he's going to use all the power that he has, which is substantial, in order to stop any type of gun legislation, regulation in this country.